Aboriginal fashion, like most things to do with Indigenous affairs of late, has become a contentious issue. It's essentially become protest wear. You see it everywhere, with slogans like "Always Was," which asserts that Australia always was and always will be Aboriginal land, or "Blak, Loud and Proud." Let's face it, if a Caucasian person wore a similar shirt, but with the word white instead, with a similar misspelling, that would be deemed white supremacy, and you'd almost certainly be labelled a Nazi. But for some reason, we let this black version slide. Other motifs include "not a date to celebrate," essentially dismissing Australia Day as a celebration of colonial violence, and "Aboriginal Land Tread Lightly," which sounds like a veiled threat. There's also shades of deadly. I know that may sound like threatening language too, but in this context, deadly is an Aboriginal English term that means excellent. I'm sorry, this symbol looks like a target, both physically and metaphorically. There's also some kind of First Nations rainbow logo, which I guess represents the LGBT community. Either way, you can't deny there is clearly a protest element to Aboriginal-designed clothing. The ABC recently published a piece, thank you to the viewer who highlighted this, titled "Is it okay to wear Indigenous fashion when you're not First Nations?" I'm going to answer this question without even reading the article. Yes it is. Why? Because we're living in a free country. We should be allowed to wear whatever we want because this is Australia, not North Korea. As long as it's legal, we should be allowed to wear it, even if others don't like it. That's how a free country works. The ABC article I mentioned is largely based on the work of a University of Technology Sydney researcher named Trina Clark, she/her, who is a Kolkata and Wirangu academic based in Tarantanya, Adelaide. She wrote a piece for The Conversation last month titled "Not First Nations, but Want to Wear First Nations Fashion?" Not really, but I'll go along because I just want to humour everybody. In her research, she spoke with 20 First Nations knowledge holders. It sounds like a divinely chosen group of people that you might find at the top of a mountain. And after all that effort, what did this group of wise people ultimately conclude? Overall, knowledge holders said it's tricky. The ABC wrote, "Ms. Clark says most of the knowledge holders agreed that ally wear comes down to respect, genuine intentions, and being a good ally." Again, I don't think that's a requirement to wear clothes. In a free country, we should have the right to wear a colourful shirt without needing a cultural sensitivity seminar. Ms. Clark quotes one knowledge holder who said, "If a First Nations person has created these forms of fashion and has not declared that it's exclusive to First Nations people, then I think that it's fine for allies to wear it." I'm sorry, but nobody should have the right to declare that it's exclusive to First Nations people. Sure, we have societal rules around things like police uniforms and so on, but that's more for legal and logistical reasons. We can't just have everyone running around pretending to be cops. But a shirt, on the other hand, isn't a government uniform. It's a fashion statement. Freedom would dictate that there should be no restrictions on wearing them. This is the Clothing the Gap's website, an Aboriginal fashion store. Now, they have so-called ally-friendly clothing, meaning anyone can wear them as a way to show support and solidarity with Aboriginal people, but they also have mob-only. On their website, they state, "Mob-only pieces are created specifically and exclusively for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people for a number of reasons." Why is this important? We are decolonising our platform and wardrobes through mob-only pieces. It's important to us as an Aboriginal-owned and led brand that we create a space that is just for mob. Okay, how will they know if a non-Aboriginal person purchases one of their pieces of clothing? If I walk around in a black, loud and proud t-shirt, what are they going to do? And to be fair, how will anybody know if I'm not Aboriginal? Are you going to make a judgment based on my physical appearance? That sounds rather racist, does it not? Also on their website, under frequently asked questions, they ask, do you offer mob, Aboriginal and/or Torres Strait Islander people rates? We sure do. Pricing equity is really important to us here at CTG, and one way we can do this is by offering 15% off for mob, always in-store and online. Pricing equity? Doesn't that imply equal pricing? Apparently, even if you're a rich Aboriginal person, your DNA somehow gets you better prices. Not to mention, imagine the outrage if somebody made a website giving Caucasian people 15% off. And what about Aboriginal people who wear Western-style clothes like a suit and a tie, or sports shoes? Do they need to seek permission from the King of England before wearing them? The ABC article states that Ms. Clark encourages people to be aware of the broader issues in First Nations fashion, such as cultural theft, appropriation, stereotyping, and exoticism. The best approach is to follow established guidelines, like buying from First Nations businesses that are certified by trusted organisations such as Supply Nation, Trading Blak, or the Indigenous Art Code. Again, I would ask why. Isn't the point of a free market to have competition and for the cheapest product to win? If one company can make Aboriginal shirts cheaper than another, doesn't this ultimately benefit the consumer? Or do we have to racialise everything? Ms. Clark's research found that there was also frustration with forced displays of support, such as mandatory Guernseys for sports teams, for example during the AFL's Indigenous round. One knowledge holder said, you know, half of them probably don't even love black fellas, but they've got to wear it, otherwise they're not playing. I agree, people shouldn't be forced to wear something they don't want to, which just proves that often these displays of allyship are not always genuine. And lastly, the ABC article interviews Laura Thompson, the CEO and co-founder of Clothing the Gaps, the store we looked at before. In the article, she discusses that rather ill-defined concept known as cultural safety. She told the ABC, when we think about cultural safety and making environments more culturally safe, for example, people might hang a poster or put up an Aboriginal flag. I get that same feeling when I walk into a room and I see someone wearing an Aboriginal flag pin. It doesn't mean I can completely trust that person, but I feel safer with them. I think she has some trust issues if she needs people to openly display Aboriginal symbols in order to even feel a little bit safer. They finished the article by stating, Ms. Thompson says non-Indigenous people wearing First Nations fashion should recognise the privilege that comes with being able to take it off at the end of the day. For mob, we have to live and breathe these issues every day. First Nations fashion does come with a responsibility. I just don't buy it. She's acting as if Aboriginal clothing has some sort of mystical property about it. She's suggesting that the clothes come with a kind of emotional or political burden. I hope my opinion is clear. If people want to wear Aboriginal clothing, they should be allowed. If they don't want to wear it, they shouldn't be forced. Having all these little rules and caveats that we're meant to follow doesn't bring people together. It only brings about more division. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to enjoy my freedom, in whatever shirt I feel like.